Improvising over a chord sequence, that's what this video is called, and you think, well, that's a bit vague, and well, the answer is it is. It's kind of a $64,000 question really, because there are lots of ways of doing this. Now I'm going to show you a tune today. This was written by my guitar hero Django Reinhardt. Now he couldn't even read and write his own language, let alone read or write music, or really be able to express anything in terms of music theory. And here there's loads of people analysing his solos and saying he goes there, and it's using all of those theoretical terms which he knew nothing of. Let's have a look. The tune I'm going to play over is called Swing 42, and it's a relatively simple chord progression, but actually there's masses you can do with it, and it goes into a different key in the middle, so that's something else to look out for. So the chords go C, A minor, D minor, G. So what we've got is chord 1, which is C, chord 6, which is A minor, chord 2, which is D minor, and chord 5, which is G, G major. For the purposes of this, the word major isn't really used all that much. It's only an M if it's a minor chord. So C means C major. Now, what happens is that those four chords are all in the key of C major. That is, they all use notes that are present in the C major scale, which does this. Of course, you can come back down the scale as well. It's worthwhile practicing scales, but practicing scales in terms of the sort of the technique and rhythm and tone and all of that sort of thing. You don't want to go up and down scales when you're improvising because it just sounds a bit boring. We've got to think in terms of phrasing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play the tune, the actual tune that was written for this, and then the second time I'm going to go around, I'm going to improvise using this scale. And you can hear it's gone off to another key there, and it's actually gone to the key of E major, completely unrelated to C, but the chord sequence in the middle is exactly the same concept. We have chord 1 this time, which is E, chord 6, which is C sharp minor, chord 2, which is F sharp minor, and chord 5, which is B. Now, leaving aside the different chord types like sevens, minors, so essentially the concept is the same. So when I go to E major, I could play an E major scale instead. And luckily on guitar, it's all pattern based. So wherever you start and play that same order of fingers, you get yourself a major scale. You don't have to sort of think in piano terms with black notes and all of that. Although it does really help when you're looking to sort of expand your theory. So if you are a guitarist who doesn't play piano, it's worth going into a supermarket and just buying a 3-octave keyboard so that you can just view your music theory as a diagram. You don't need to be lightning at it. It just means that you can visualize things on a page. So soloing, improvising over a chord sequence, the whole point of this video. It's about phrasing things. And also skipping notes, so you could play arpeggios, for example. Here's an arpeggio of C major. This does imply, because the C major scale is basically the scale that gives all of the chords their notes, it means that you can play anything in that key, in effect. There are a few notes that you have to avoid, like the 4th note in any major chord. So for example, C. You've got that note that doesn't work at all. If I was to play it up here, and then play one of the main notes that's in C major, which is an E, you can hear that it's a little graty. However, you can use it if you're on your way somewhere, just don't hang around on it. So major chord, don't use the 4th note of whatever major chord you've got. So for example, G, you wouldn't use a C for the same reason, because it's actually a semitone above the third note of that particular chord. Now all of the notes, all of the chords rather, they are in the key of C major, so you can pretty much do anything you like, but just be aware of those little gremlins. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a solo that's really simple, but you can hear that it's in 2-bar chunks. And of course, it doesn't mean that you have to restrict yourself to 2-bar chunks. It could be 4-bar chunks. But doing all this sort of doesn't really say anything. We're speaking. This tune doesn't have lyrics. It was just, you know, recorded in the studio. But the tune itself, it's got that rhythmic identity that sort of just, it's obvious that that is the theme of that piece of music. So the other thing to do, of course, is when you're going through a chord sequence like this, is to prepare for that E major, where it goes into the center section. Now that does mean that it's a good idea to try and smooth over the gap between C major and E major by actually beginning to solo in E before it's even got there. This is sort of anticipating the chord changes. That's kind of a jazzer's term, really. It just means that everything that you play it's going somewhere. There's a direction. It's not this sudden sort of join between two chords. You want to try and avoid that. So if I play once again, I'm going to play maybe something in 4-bar phrases. Now at the same time, any of these notes, for example, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, there's nothing to stop me playing chromatic. Now that means playing every note that exists between those two Cs. If it means that I can interpolate between two notes that are in C major, it's completely fair game to play a chromatic. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to play some phrased things, but you'll notice that there are some chromatic notes, and then I'm going to try, at least, to begin to solo in E major before the backing track has got there. Etc. So I tried to do some go to basically E major. I went there a little bit early and I came back to C in advance of it coming back to that first key, the key of C major. Also, I had some chromatic notes. So B and D, they are both in the key of C major. But I put the C and the C sharp in between. And I also made the chromatic notes slightly quieter, so it's going from B to D, but it's going through the other frets. Indeed, you could slide there, because you're actually going through those notes anyway. You could do something like that, where you're actually playing a sort of syncopated line. So there is masses that you can do, as long as you know where the notes are that work with your chord sequence. Essentially, you can kind of do anything, but keep it phrased. I could play something really simple, but utilising a sound of a guitar where I'm just taking advantage of what the guitar can do. Something like this. Ooh, little gremlin there. Of course, making mistakes. Now, this is really the closing argument of this as well. Just justifying what I did there. The closing argument is that you should indeed make tons of mistakes. Those of us who never make any mistakes will never ever learn anything. I say that to my pupils when they come in and they're making a right mess. They go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." So it doesn't matter. You can make as many mistakes as you like in this room because they realise that the mistakes were there, or notes that didn't quite work. And that's kind of the point, really. Improvising is about knowing all sorts of things that you can do, but also being aware of the things that really wouldn't work all that well. It's just a nice path that you can navigate. There are plenty of right answers and not really lots of wrong ones. I mean, of course, a note that is utterly off that you hang about on would not work. So, for example, if I played in D flat major over C, people would think I was a bit weird. Yeah, I'm into that. Oh yes, out there, real out there.